Why does the idea that we are freed in our faith in Christ scare us so much? Hi, my name is Ted Rosenblatt, and this is my father, Dr. Rod Rosenblatt. Dad, this freedom thing is scary. And we've seen this over and over again. What is it about being free that, makes us just lose our minds?
It's hard for us to admit even to ourselves, but there's a comfort in a recipe and trying to fulfill the recipe. Probably the key verse is in Galatians, where Paul says to stand fast in your freedom and don't let anyone take it from you. Now, the context was that in Galatia, somebody had twisted the gospel message that he had preached there and started adding a little bit of Moses into it. It was a particular kind of Judaizer. So he writes Galatians and has that admonition, do not give up your freedom, stand fast in it. It's hard to explain how and why we're so comforted by fulfilling a recipe, but we are. In the nature of Christian freedom, in that case, in Galatia, it was, don't let anybody add circumcision to the gospel. Don't let anyone add anything to the gospel I preach to you. One time, a student I had at a Christian college, where I was an instructor, said to me years later, when we started to talk about Christian freedom together, you've got to know, Dr. Rosenblatt, you scared every one of us in the room to death, frightened us to death in talking about that subject.
And that's just bizarre to me. Now, let me put the other side on this. The other side is, don't we sinners hear the word freedom and immediately take it to the wrong side? Don't we immediately just jump the shark and go to the other side and say, okay, you say I'm free. Fantastic. I am off to the races and I can sin as much as I want, right?
Yep.
Because this Jesus you've spoken of frees me up and he has covered my sins, all of them, the ones that I don't even know I committed, all the way to the very end until the moment I'm dead and I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm good. So I can do whatever I want, right?
Yep.
That's what we sinners are just guaranteed to do that, right?
Paul writes to Rome, chapters 1 through 5 of Romans. He's never been there. There's a congregation there he's never met. He hopes to visit there and says so, but he's never met them. So 1 through 5. 1, the pagan is going to be held responsible and found guilty for revelation in nature and in conscience, or 2, in conscience, Romans 2. Romans 3, halfway through, the whole world, it will have its mouth stopped and nobody will say anything. And he goes through 5, the assurance that there is peace with God through Christ's person and work for us, every one of us. He knows what his critic is going to respond. His critic is going to respond just what you said. So he answers it before he ever gets there or sends the letter. In 6, he says, shall we then therefore sin the more that the more grace might abound? God forbid, or may it never be, and then explains why. The idea of Christian freedom is frightening to us because if we have any knowledge of ourselves as sinners, we're thinking that, and it frightens us. We know most people know that if they're declared to be free, they go right to that. All of us should recognize that in ourselves.
Let me do this. I'll use one of your parlances.
Okay.
Here, son, here are the keys to the car. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I could just go ahead and, take a bunch of shots of whiskey and head out and see my friends and have a night on the town and return at 4 a.m. and the car might look a little different, but I'm good to go, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be mad at me. That's what you're saying. I can do whatever I want.
Right. Yep. Blank check. The key thing here in its context is Paul saying, I preached a gospel where you are free in Christ. That's what I preached, and somebody obviously has torqued that, has screwed it up. Whatever you do, go back to the gospel I preached to you originally, and don't listen to anybody who's torquing it. I gave you a gospel where you are free in Christ. Stay with that one. Don't buy the alternative.
And doesn't this tie into what we hold to in a law gospel paradigm, which is a regular preaching of the law and the gospel, even to Christian believers,
Yep.
so that we are reminded of the things that we do, even that we don't know that we do.
Yep.
So that we understand that when we receive forgiveness this week, we are being forgiven of all of these things, even the things we don't understand. And in the thankfulness for what we receive, we are less inclined to go run amok.
That's right.
Because I have been a real schmuck this week.
Yep.
You know, and I need the forgiveness for this week. And then the law reminds me, yep.
You do.
And you need this.
Yeah. We need, as Christian believers, to have the gospel preached to us every single Sunday. As believers, we need it. Why? Because everything in us strays away from it. Every week, every month, every year, it's a continual sort of dulling of our ability to believe this thing. And the pastor's calling is to preach it again and again and again and again. If you're at a church where that is not preached to you every Sunday, find a new church.
We're running a little long today, and we're going to continue to, as Dad said, and bring a message of good news and freedom like this to you again and again and again. Please come back to us here at 1517.org. Visit us, and I hope you follow the Talks with Dad Rod podcast. And we'll see you again soon. Hope this is useful to you. Thank you for joining us on Talks with Dad Rod, part of the 1517 Podcast Network. This podcast and all 1517's content is made possible through financial support by listeners just like you. Please visit 1517.org for more, and please consider clicking on the donate button and making a recurring or one-time contribution to help us share this good news in a world which so desperately needs it.